Hello. Today I want to talk about the privilege of fearing God. The privilege of fearing God. That title came to me because I was basically talking to God, and I was just like, "Hey, I got this feeling. I don't know how to express it, and I need a title, so help me out." And then I started thinking about it, and then all of a sudden it was like, fearing God is a privilege, and I was just like, "What?" Because I know that like when we think about fear and God and all that other stuff, it's a very confusing and I think mysterious. I don't even know what to call it. There's so many paradoxical things about relating to God, relating with God. At least as I understand it, it is really hard to articulate. I love that word articulate; it makes you sound smart. But anyway, um, it's really hard to put into words. But I recently came to this awareness, or whatever I want to call it, or at least I learned how to describe this feeling. I'm sorry I'm so confusing y'all, but I'm just trying to show you just how difficult it is sometimes to express some of these things. Because I started talking about God, or I started thinking about God as I understand God now, my personal relationship with God, and I feel super duper excited, super duper excited. But if you got into my mind and you tried to like understand why I was excited, you would say that dude is different. Let's say, because you wouldn't be excited about what I'm excited about. But I'll just put it out here like this. I'll tell you a story. Before I tell you a story, I'm actually going to read something to you that I read to myself every single day because I'm pretty much committed to trying to understand what the heck I'm talking about when I read this passage. This is from Psalms 119, is verses 33 through 40. And I might have read this before online. I don't know if I did or didn't, but anyway, here it goes. It says, "Teach me, O Lord, the way of your statutes, and I shall keep it to the end. Give me understanding, and I shall keep your law. Indeed, I shall observe it with my whole heart. Make me walk in the path of your commandments, for I delight in it. Incline my heart to your testimonies, and not the covetousness. Turn away my eyes from looking at worthless things, and revive me in your way. Establish your word to your servant who is devoted to fearing you. Turn away my reproach, which I dread, for your judgments are good. Behold, I long for your precepts. Revive me in your righteousness." So, anyway, I read this every day. I've been doing it for, I don't know, maybe months, and I've identified with that scripture for years, trying to like understand it. Because the way I read scripture, I don't just read it just so I can be like, oh, I understand it, and I can like quote it and blah, 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 whatever, and make myself feel special. I really just want to dig into it, mostly, or at least originally, in part because I was fascinated that people were still talking about this old school stuff. But at any rate, when I read that scripture, usually most of the parts of it, I'm like, yep, yep, I got it. Okay, yeah, I want to be able to kind of understand the ways of that God would have me live, or whatever the case may be. But when I get to that part of saying devoted to fearing you, I used to be like devoted to fearing you because I just didn't even want to say it because I didn't get it. I was just like, fearing, man, I hate fearing, and then I get all bothered and annoyed, blah blah blah. But then recently, it hit me. One of the things that hit me is that humans are afraid anyway. It doesn't matter if we're afraid, fearing God. It doesn't matter if we were fearing the IRS. It doesn't matter if we were fearing our mama. It doesn't matter if we're fearing our relationship because we're scared we're going to get hurt. It doesn't matter if we're fearing our jobs. It doesn't matter if we're fearing the fashion world because we want to be in style. Obviously, I don't care about that. But all these other things, we're going to fear something. That's just how we are. We're some scared people, and we will find things to fear even when there's nothing to fear because we're so afraid of not being afraid that we stay afraid. Does that make any sense? Let me tell you what I mean. Because we're so afraid that if we ever aren't afraid, something's going to sneak up on us. So the only way we can protect ourselves from something sneaking up on us is to constantly be afraid. So if we stay afraid, then we don't have to worry about something sneaking up on us because we'll always be having our brains tuned to fear. And I really don't like that. So now I'm gonna tell you a story. Whoop, 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 whoop. Let's go backwards. So this is how crazy I was. Not saying crazy, but this is how interesting I was. I remember I was a little kid, And I was like, I had to be like 5 or 6 because I went to Highland Biltmore Elementary School, and I remember when I left there and I started going to Churchland Primary. So I had to be like 6 because it was like in the middle of the school year, and I was on the school bus and I was new, and kids were like picking with me and all this other junk. And I said something. I don't remember what I said, but I do remember that somebody said, "Ooh, you can get struck by lightning." And I said, "What do you mean I'm gonna get struck by lightning?" And they said, "Well, if you say this, God will strike you by lightning, with lightning." And I said, "What?" And I'd already been going to church and I knew something about God. I don't know what I knew, but I thought I knew something. But when I heard that God was gonna strike me from lightning with lightning for saying something that I didn't even know I shouldn't have said, something disturbed me about that because I was like, for some reason, I never liked being threatened ever since I was a little kid. Like if my mom said, "Oh, you can get popped," or something like that, or I even thought my mom was gonna pop me, I would go get something and be like, just in case you were thinking about spanking me or popping me, here you can go. Here's a switch. So now I'm about to say what I'm gonna say, and you can do what you have to do, or whatever the case may be. To which my mom would say, "You are a strange child." But at any rate, I never liked being threatened, not even by God, or at least people's ideas of God, because some kids told me God was gonna strike me by lightning. And when I heard that day, as soon as I got home from school, I went in the closet and I started talking to God or talking to my imagination about God, whatever. And I said, "So you strike me with lightning if I say some stuff and I don't even know that it's wrong, and then you're gonna strike me with lightning? I dare you to strike me with lightning." And then I started proceeding to saying stuff to try to make God mad, daring God to strike me with lightning. Now, why did I do that? I have no idea. But for some reason, it was worth it to me. I'd rather get struck by lightning and find out if God was going to do something about it by the things I said than to live in the fear of God striking me by lightning for no reason whatsoever. So I was trying to think of anything that would get God to strike me with lightning because I was just like, "Do it then. You're going to strike me with lightning? Just do it." I don't know why I was like that. But anyway, I was. And then the most amazing weird thing happened. Because when I went to church on Sunday, after daring God to strike me by lightning and God not doing it, at first I was just like, whatever. And then since I wasn't scared of God striking me by lightning, I had a big mouth with other people too, which may contribute to some of the other experiences I had post that. But at any rate, um, on that Sunday, they were talking about God and Jesus, and all of a sudden I started crying like crazy, man. And I started being filled with like some kind of love, or I don't know what it was. I'm gonna call it love, but I really didn't understand what it was. Nevertheless, that has informed me throughout my life. And I think that's when my relationship with God kind of started. Now, to say I was in a relationship with God isn't to say I actually understood what I was into. All I knew was I connected with something unknown. And you can read the post that's going to be written below that'll explain some of the content or the mental content that comes with that relationship. But an aside to that was as I started to develop in life, I used to have like irritation with people who would be afraid because I had already like talked smack to God that I wasn't even really worried about people that much. And that causes all kinds of trouble because when people are afraid, they want you to be equally afraid. Like if you're in a relationship with somebody and they're afraid you're going to hurt them, they want you to be just as afraid that they're going to hurt you because that's how you kind of keep each other in check. But I didn't participate at that level. Blah, blah, blah. Let's move on. This idea that I'm talking about now about the privilege of fearing God, that what hit me the other day was if I'm a fear something, I might as well fear God. And I know that there's a scripture that I might refer to in the script below where I talk about what Jesus says, like, don't be fearing people, fear the one that can like snatch everything and your soul. But what I got out of it is if we're gonna fear anyway, why not fear someone that has your best interest at heart? Like, let's think about, just take this back and think about like when you're a kid and you were scared that other kids were gonna pick on you, or you're scared of blah blah blah, and your mom or your dad is like, "Hey, stop doing this or stop doing that." It's better. Your parent would say, "You know what? It's better for you to fear me than to fear these other people out here that don't have your best interests at heart, or fear these people that are gonna like care about what you look like, your fashion, or whether you're in style, or what your skin color is, or all this other stuff that we do, all these crazy things because we want to get approved of." And the parent says, "You know what? Fear me." But the parent also loves you more than those people love you. And at the same time, that parent says, "Fear me." Why? Because they're like, well, look, if you're gonna be scared of me, because at least if you're scared of me, I'm gonna steer you in the right direction. If you're scared of these fools, you're gonna destroy yourself. And I started thinking about that when I started thinking about God, fearing God, and how what a privilege it would be that if I'm gonna fear something, might as well fear God. And so, because God has my best interest at heart, if you catch my drift. But another thing that really sent this home to me is, I know I have the privilege myself of sometimes spending time with people who have been through a lot of stuff, and I've encountered people throughout my life, people who might have kids that are on drugs or something like that. And when I listen to their stories about how they like went after their kid and chased after their kid and did all this stuff, and like no matter how many kids their kids stole from them or did all these other things, they still love that kid. If that kid said I'm going to rehab about 50, 30, whatever, a whole bunch of times, that parent always wanted to believe it, always did stuff. I know parents, people who have like put their house on the market to try to like, or like at least got a second mortgage or something to help out their kid that was running around going crazy. I started thinking, man, what, you know, if we'll do that for our kids, or at least some of us, man, imagine what God would go through to try to uh, get us to get it together. And imagine, like, sometimes the parents will be like, threaten you and threaten you and threaten you, saying, "I'm gonna do this if you don't do this," and they try to, and all of it is just to get you on the right path. And I start thinking, like, what if God's like, "Look, I'm gonna destroy you. I'm gonna do this," but it's all to try to get you on the right path. And the fear that you have is like, yeah, God could do all that, and God could have done all that, but maybe God isn't even going to do it. Maybe God threatens us for our benefit, or maybe God doesn't even threaten us. Maybe we need to believe that we're being threatened by God so that we can keep ourselves on the right track. We need to believe that there's some kind of like torturous thing that God's going to do to us if we don't get it together. And maybe the place here or the thing even exists, but it's still to get us in the right direction. I'm not saying I'm right about this, but what I'm saying is when I observe, I know what I feel like as being a parent, and I observe other parents and I see all this stuff. And when they say fear me, or they have the idea of you better fear me, or they try to instill fear in you, it's not because they want you to walk around afraid. It's because they want you to walk around aware and conscious and being able to be responsible and all these other things. And so I started saying to myself, you know what? Sometimes a little nervousness comes up as I approach 40 years old and I'm making like different decisions in life and starting over for like the 50th time uh, with careers because I'm trying to figure out what I really want to do. I some of that stuff comes up, but you know what? At the end of the day, I say, well, look, if I'm gonna get scared, or feared, have fear. Let me have fear for God, not because I think God's gonna snatch up my soul, but because maybe I should be more concerned, if you will, with the way that God lives in life, and well, the way that God's inviting me to participate in life, instead of worrying about what the world thinks. So, at any rate, that was a blah, blah, blah of stuff. Hopefully, you got something out of it. Hopefully, you like what you read below. And if you get anything out of this, even if it's making you scratch your head, pass it along because we need to have these conversations. Not just because they're religious or because we're afraid of this, that, and the other thing, but because we need to explore. Because man, if you live here long enough, you know that this world is making some crazy decisions. And I think we need to reevaluate the way, you know, and the truth and the life. So anyway, that's it. Just putting it out there. See what you get out of it. Let's discuss. Bye.